Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's Mike from brew-news.com. So this week, we're going to go over how to calibrate your pH meter. A few weeks ago, I talked a lot about using the pH meter for monitoring mash pH. I did that over the span of multiple beers, more than 10 beers. We talked about the data. I'll pin that video at the end of this one. But this week, I thought I'd show you how to calibrate the Milwaukee MW102 pH meter. So the cool thing about this meter is that it's a two-port meter. There's a port for your probe and a port for the thermometer. I like this kind of probe because, this kind of meter rather, because the probe is not built into the meter itself. The meter really is pretty simple electronics, so it should stay good for a very long time. But the probes eventually wear out, or if you abuse it or drop it, you can easily get a new probe without having to replace the meter, and a probe isn't as expensive as the whole unit altogether. So that's convenient. So I'm going to go through the parts of what I use to measure pH, and then I'll show you how to calibrate the meter too. So you've seen the meter. The first big thing to go over after that is the probe. So this is what the probe looks like. It's in a storage vial because you want to keep the probe moist most of the time. There's a storage electrode solution you should buy to maintain your probe in between readings. pH storage solution is generally potassium chloride, 3 or 4 molar if you're a science geek. I like to keep I have this small mason jar that I let the probe rest in like this because it can be sort of top heavy and tend to flop over if you have it in something else, or just have a dedicated rack for it. The second piece of equipment that comes with the whole setup here is the thermometer. So the thermometer plugs into the probe as well, and you want them both in the sample solution, or in this case, the calibration solution. This just helps get you an accurate reading at whatever temperature you're measuring at. It doesn't correct for room temperature. It just gives you a good reading at the temperature you're reading at, but you should be making all your measurements at room temperature. Another thing that I like to have is I have a series of these little cups. Here's an example up close. So these little cups, these are just mini little plastic beakers I bought, but they're really convenient for holding the calibration solutions. And one of them I use when I draw my sample. And because they're small and thin-walled, I tend to draw the hot sample from the mash. And then I just take this with my wort sample in it and set it into a small bowl of ice water for like 10 minutes, swirl it around a few times, and it comes down to room temperature pretty quickly. So, but I can confirm that with my probe, right? So I can make sure I'm at room temperature. Let's talk a little bit about the real business of what we're going to do if we want to calibrate our pH meter. So calibration solutions come in many different forms. Because I was doing a lot of measurements, I was buying these large bottle formats. So this is what pH 4 looks like, and this is what the pH 7 looks like. Classically, in almost all chemistry labs that I've ever been in, pH 4 is almost always red. It has a red label. The pH 7 neutral is generally always green. You want to make sure that you get a pH 7, or in this case 7.01, and that your meter is calibrating to 7 or 701. I don't know why they make it tricky like that. These solutions are clear, but you can get solutions like these two, which are actually the color. So see, that's green, pH solution 7. This one's green. This one is pink for pH 4. The thing that's nice about these is that when you pour them into the cups, if for some reason you forget which one is which, it's colors, so you know what's going on. So I sort of prefer these, but I haven't been able to get these in a larger format, so I use these. What I tend to do when I'm using these is that once I set up the 7, I'll put the 7 there, and then I'll put the 4 next to it and never move the cups. So I just remember it's 7 and 4. Another option is that you can buy one-time use calibration solutions versus like these semi-bulk ones that come in these little plastic little bags. And these are nice. You just tear it open. You can set it into a jar, or if you have a large enough glass or something so it doesn't tip over. But once you open it, it's not really resealable. I suppose you could pour it out, but once you put your probe in there, you've sort of contaminated it. So these are really one use only, but they're convenient because they're just disposable and they're not super expensive. And they're self-contained. You don't have to worry about having a clean container to do it. So there's that. So you got your calibration solutions, your probe, your thermometer, the meter. Another thing to have is I just keep a paper towel because you'll want to dab the probe, and you'll see that when I do the calibration. Then lastly, I'm going to use some really clean spring water. RO or distilled water would be even better, but I have found that it doesn't really make too big a difference for homebrew measurements, right? So you need a little bit of water. You want to let your probe sort of soak in some water first, just to sort of equilibrate to not being in storage solution. That's a pretty salty solution. So you want to have a little bit of water. So I'm going to take one of these cups, put some water in it just to put the probe and thermometer in there just to get it going, get it, you know, sort of equilibrating out of the salt solution, the storage solution. Then I'm going to pour off my pH 7 and my pH 4. And then we'll hook all this up and I will show you how to do the calibration process on the M102 pH meter. Okay, here we go. I'm all set up. I got my paper towel to do some dabbing. I've got my two storage solutions, the 7 and the 4. If you mix it up and you forget which is which, that's why pH papers come in handy. You can always dip and figure out which one is your 7, which one's your 4. So don't underestimate these. They have a lot of usage. Okay, so in here, I put one of these sampling cups in this glass jar. I could have put my distilled water in here, but the glass is a little bit dirty, so I just use a nice clean sampling cup. I got my probe in here, equilibrating temperature. You want to put your pH probe into the solution for a little bit, like I said, to get the salt out of it. But let's hook this up. So first things first, this is for the pH probe, and it just goes on and twists. Then this is like an old sound AV stereo cable. It just goes right on like that. So piece of cake. Let's see if I can manage this awkwardly with the wires in front of me without spilling stuff. Okay. So now we're going to turn the meter on. Let's see what happens. It's going to give us a pH reading of that water that's been sitting there. Now it has been calibrated, so who knows if this is actually right. So right now it's reading 6.69. I don't really care. You can see that the little hourglass went away, which means that it is a stable reading at that point right there. So on the Milwaukee meter, if you want to know what the temperature is, you have to hold down the centigrade button. So there you go, 17.3. So it's a little bit lower than room temperature. Room temperature is like 19 to 20, or like 68, 72 is room temperature in Fahrenheit. But all of these solutions are at the same temperature, so that's all that really matters. So to take our first measurement, to get ready to do calibration, I'm going to take this guy out, put it into the pH 7 solution. I'm going to try to do this without knocking it over so you can see it. Then I'm going to take this, and I'm holding the pH meter at the same time. I'm going to dab it off on the paper towel just to get some of that excess water off so I don't upset my pH solution too much, which shouldn't happen. You can see how the probe has like these, let's see if I can get a view of that. See how it has like some teeth inside there, down at the tip end is like a round bulb, and it's surrounded by those plastic like little teeth. So all you need is enough solution that it comes up above those teeth, and those little plastic teeth are there to sort of protect you from banging the probe around the actual business end of that probe on the glass, or if you're using something with a stir bar, that's what you're trying to avoid there, right? So we're in there, and right now it's reading 709, so that's pretty close. But what we do is we just hit calibrate, and it's going to start flashing 701. And it's going to do that until it feels like it's got a stable reading, and at that point, the 7.01 won't stop flashing, but the little pH up in the corner will go solid. The hourglass will stay on this meter. Oh, actually that went away. In the past, it hasn't happened. Okay, cool. So there you go. So what it's telling you is that I have now calibrated to 7.01. You need to tell the meter that I like that reading. You say confirm. That's what this button is, confirm. And when you hit confirm, it'll automatically start calling for the 4.0 solution. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it a little rinsey rinse. I'm going to dab without spilling my, right? So put that in the 4. In theory, these things are the same temperature, but if we want to do it right, let's put our temperature probe in the 4. And now it's going to start giving a reading until it thinks it's at the 4. And once it stabilizes, you'll see the little hourglass should go away. You can do it, meter. There it goes. So there's your pH 4. Again, To finish this, we say confirm, and then you're good to go. And it's reading 4.0. It'll drift a little bit, but now you've calibrated your meter. Oh, 3.9. So maybe my glasses weren't as clean as they need to be, but for home brewing purposes, I think we're in pretty good shape. So I'm going to take this out. Let's rinse it off in that water. And now you're ready to make your readings. And all you have to do is just put it into your sample. I should have dabbed it off because that water has no buffering capacity whatsoever. So I probably carried some of that pH 4 over into that solution. But in theory now what it's doing is it's making a reading. And when it's done making a reading and it's stable, and you can stir it a little bit. But that's how you make your first pH reading after doing your calibration. There you go. So once the little hourglass goes away, that's its stable reading. That's what it's reading there at that. So, okay. So then we're going to turn the and then I'll show you what to do with the probe when we're done. Let me move the cameras around. Okay, so we showed you how to calibrate the meter, essentially how to take a reading, but when I put it back into that final solution. So I've let it soak for a little bit in my spring water, my distilled water. The one last thing you want to do in order to take care of your probe for longer lifespan is to put it back in storage solution. So let me untangle these cords. Geez, Mike, you're making a case for the pen, aren't you? So I've got my probe. I'm going to take it out of the water solution. I'm just going to give it a light dab to get that excess water off. Inside this little jar, I think you can barely see it. There's a little bit of fluid at the bottom. You don't need much of the storage solution in here. You just put that in there. This sort of has like, it tensions up as you tighten it. So all you have to do is then slip this probe right back into the tube, and you'll see the solution come up the sides of the tube, but you just want to ensure that that base of the probe is submerged in that storage solution. And then you just tighten this down a little bit, and it'll make somewhat of a seal there. It's not a great seal. You can see all the salt on there. So anyway, so that's all tightened up like that. And so that's ready to go, just to sit at room temperature until you're ready to use it next time. So I'm going to put that back in my jar so it doesn't flip over. Okay, so I brew out in my garage this time of year. It's really cold out there. Sometimes in the summertime it gets really hot out there. You want to be kind to your probe. So I tend to store it all here in the basement part of the brewery, so it maintains a relatively stable temperature. Otherwise, you're just going to burn through your probe fairly quick. If your probe won't calibrate, or you think you're really getting real bad readings, you're probably, it's probably time to get a new probe. But as long as you take care of it, rinse it really well in a non-electrolyte solution like distilled water. Use your storage solution. That should be really good. They make these sort of beer and wort cleaning solutions where you just soak the probe in one of these for a little while too, so that's good. I haven't had to do that yet. I feel like it's pretty good because the protein and stuff gunks up the probe. The probe is actually fairly porous. That's how the ions are moving back and forth. So that's pretty good. So that's how you calibrate your probe for the Milwaukee MW102 pH meter. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you've got some questions about using the meter, how to maintain the probe, or pH in general, put them in the comments below. So we do this kind of thing every single week. This is a little bit more technical week, a little bit more equipment focused. But if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Give us subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We're trying to boost our subscriber count, so tell your friends about brew-juice.com. Come on over to YouTube. Carry on and cheers.